All right, so now we're going to start looking at something called claim evidence reasoning, and it's very similar to parts of argumentative essays or even any essays that you write in ELA, only this is scientific explanation to explain science. First off, you have a claim, and they originate from having a question being asked. And your claim is usually that concluding statement, that answer to that question. And it's very, very specific. Usually it's about one sentence in length. You don't have to go very much more than one sentence, but it has to be accurate. It has to be correct, and it has to be specific. No ambiguity, no opinions. It's got to be backed up, and it must completely answer the question. Now, what about that backup? That backup is the evidence. It's all that scientific data that maybe you have collected that supports your claim, or that scientific data that's in a table, or in a graph, or a chart, or even in a document like a scientific journal. It must be sufficient and relevant to your claim. You don't want to claim the sun is yellow and say, well, the grass is green, and that's why the sun's yellow. It doesn't correlate. You want to make sure it correlates correctly. And it can come from a variety of sources, just like I said, textbook, reading selections, videos, images, lab results, investigation, class notes, and as I said before, like data tables, charts, graphs. All right. Once we have all that lovely, we have the claim, we have the evidence. Now you got to back up that evidence. Why is that evidence relevant? Why are we using it? The reasoning is the explanation that connects that claim to the evidence, and it supports why you think, why or why not, you think that claim, the answer to your question, is correct. It shows why the data you chose counts as evidence and isn't like just the grass is green and that shows why the sun is yellow. It doesn't match. It shows a detailed understanding of the scientific principles involved and uses correct scientific vocabulary. And that's the big thing that I'm going to start looking for, is you have to show your detailed understanding. It's not a generic statement. It's not generic. You have to give something to it. And you got to use scientific vocab. All right, so here's some sentence starters that you could use to show some evidence. According to the text, it's from a textbook. On page whatever number, it said this. The author wrote, for instance, from the reading, I know that. Based on what I read, the graph showed, the chart showed, the table showed. For example, in the experiment we saw. All of those are great starters. You might want to write them down. They might help you a little bit later. All right, let's look at an example CER. First, claim. Plants need sunlight to grow. Your claim. It is straightforward. It is one sentence, and it tells exactly what you think. No ambiguity. Evidence. In our experiment, we put plant A in the sunlight and plant B in the dark cabinet. At the end of 2 weeks, plant A was 4 centimeters taller than plant B. This is evidence. We also learned in our reading that plants use sunlight to produce their own food. And now I'm going to add that reasoning, that extra, that scientific knowledge. Plants need sunlight to grow. According to the text, plants use sunlight to produce their own food. Plants need this food to grow. In our investigation, we could see that the plants had no sunlight did not grow, while the plant that had sunlight did grow. Sunlight was the only difference between the two samples in the investigation. Therefore, we can conclude that the sunlight causes the plants to grow. All right, well, let's look at another one. Example, seed dispersal. The method of seed dispersal for coconut palm trees is flotation. Coconuts float in water and wash up along the shoreline when they sprout. Sometimes you see coconut palm trees growing high on the island. How did it get there? So you got to think, if coconut seeds float in water, how the heck did it get all the way up there? Well, here's a claim. A tsunami, that's like a big wall of water, carried the coconut seeds to high levels on the island and dispersed them. Evidence. According to the reading, coconuts are transported by water, and there are at least 7 trees up around the same altitude in the island. So look at that, right around there. Reasoning. Since coconuts are transported by water and are too heavy to be transported by wind, and since it appears trees are growing much higher than along the water level, I conclude that there must have been a large wave or a tsunami that deposited the coconuts high up. In fact, the fact that all the trees are about the same size would support that they were deposited or germinated around the same time. These are adult trees, so they would have been 50 or more years ago. And a paragraph to put everything together. A tsunami carried the coconuts to a high level on land. According to the reading, coconuts are transported by water. There are at least 7 trees up around the same altitude of the island. Since the coconuts are transported by water and are too heavy to be transported by wind, and since it appears the trees are growing much higher than along the water level, I conclude that there must have been a large wave or tsunami that deposited the coconuts up high. The fact that all the trees are about the same size would support that they were deposited, germinated about the same time. These are adult trees, so they have been, or could have been, 50 or more years ago. That's how you write up a CER right here. So you have your claim, your evidence, your reasoning, and you put it all nicely together in one paragraph. All right, so that is it for the CER. If you have any questions on how to write these up, please don't hesitate to ask, and I hope you guys have a nice day.